Let's get across more of these moves. Peter McGuire is joining us live for more on these moves. Peter, great to see you there today. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, the oil price seeming to be finding support from a variety of sort of places right now. What are you making of some of these moves and I guess what we're seeing in the space?
Well, good afternoon, Leanne. Yes, you know, when you're looking at Brent, Leanne, 7 last consecutive sessions we've been up, 6 for WTI, so it's been very, very strong, and that momentum pushing it higher. We've got those, you know, the missile strikes in Syria, uncertainty as far as, you know, geopolitically, what's happening in North Korea, and of course that outage as far as pipeline in Libya. So what impact that's going to have pushing forward, you may see, you know, that 54, 55 handle for WTI.
Just on that wider sort of disruption there in the Middle East, because it is interesting. I mean, Syria, it only produces a very small volume of oil, doesn't it? But
that's right.
The Middle East, more broadly, I mean, that is home to more than a quarter of the world's oil output. So that would be significant if in fact, this conflict and this disruption was to broaden.
Well, exactly right, Leanne. I think it's about 27, 28% of global production. So that gives us an idea. And then you've got that outage as far as Libya. We're only 6 weeks out from OPEC meeting on the 25th of May, and leading up to then, there's been a high degree of compliance across all the OPEC and non-OPEC producers that threw their hat in the ring as far as cutting production. So that's been adhered to, and you've got those shale producers on the other side, so they're producing at record numbers. So taking all that on board, it's an interesting mix, and that'll lead us into that summer driving season. The uncertainty, of course, is Mother Nature with hurricanes and what goes on with geopolitical.
Pete, it's Adam here from Shaw and Partners. Mate,
hello, Adam.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just about to say there's a lot of data points that are pointing in the right direction for oil.
Yes.
Summer driving season, you know, geopolitical unrest.
Absolutely.
But then I was about to ask what the risks are, but you're saying hurricanes. What are the other ones?
Well, the hurricane season, we approach that, normally it starts at around about mid-July and it runs through as late as November. The middle of the season's about mid-September. So that gives our viewers a standard, you know, understanding as far as that warmer water, and we just experienced some uncertainty as far as Peru only a couple of weeks back with large floods. So we have warmer water, that in turn creates the right thermal and the right meteorological to form a hurricane, and that seems to be, you know, that's a bit of an uncertainty this time of year, Adam.
Yeah. You also mentioned their US shale production, because of course we are seeing US inventories at these record highs at the moment, and that certainly is still a concern, if not one of the biggest concerns for the oil market.
Well, exactly right, you know, and that build, we're saying that could come off a little bit over the next couple of months. It'll be interesting how it plays forward with increasing demand, possibly over that northern summer season. That's when people drive cars and drive trucks and all of those sort of things in that northern hemisphere. So people take holidays and they go to road, and fuel prices are relatively cheap compared to what they were going back, you know, 5 or 6 years ago. So that seems to be a key driver, and that's, again, what impact it has to inventories.
Pete, interested in terms of what some of the brokers are out saying, and I might get a view from my panel just after you, but Goldman Sachs, I note, you know, still predicts that supply and demand will fall into line by the end of this year. Is that right? Just talk us through what you're hearing from the brokers. Well,
that's exactly right. I mean, Goldman's have got an interesting view. They make about $1 billion a year out of commodity trading, and that just gives you an idea. They're one of the largest in the field in that space. And they're saying that there's going to be a weakness as far as the production side that could come off a little bit going later in the year. Some others are saying that, you know, that'll fall forward into 18 and 19, what impact that's going to have to market. And then you've got the JP Morgans and the like that are conflicting those sort of storylines. So everyone seems to have their own outlook, and that creates, again, uncertainty, Leanne.
Absolutely. What do you reckon over at Shaw and Partners, Adam?
Yeah, so we've got an analyst that obviously is looking at most of these commodities as well. You know, I think at the end of the day we've got, you know, we're seeing a lot of these, you know, sort of base metals are starting to get weaker. We're seeing a lot of these commodities are now starting to be mixed, whereas a couple of weeks ago we just had this sort of trend that everything was moving higher and everything was going. So we're seeing a little bit of a cooling off in a lot of these materials or these commodity spaces. I mean, obviously the one is to really look at is iron ore, and, you know, that now fallen by that 20%. Technically, it's in a bear market. But, you know, still being fairly resilient at around, what is it, $70 or $74 where it is today. So fairly resilient. But, yeah, it's a tough space, and I think Pete calls it pretty well each week. Every time I'm on, he calls it quite well as far as what's happening with especially the oil. I don't know what the rig count is this week. Pete, do you know what it is?
Well, it's been a build, Adam. There's certainly Baker Hughes. The numbers are up. I was waiting for Mark to come forward with some numbers. Yeah. So I'll have to wait till next week for that one. I'll have a close review. But you've seen a solid uptick as far as the nimbleness of those shale producers quickly entering the market, and they're building week on week.
Can we just talk iron ore now that
sure.
Adam has brought it up? Because we know that it is technically now in a bear market, but if we consider that move there, I think it's well above levels that we've sort of seen, you know, 12 months ago, for example.
Well, we're up 33% from 12 months ago, Leanne, and remember last year we saw 80% uptick, so, you know, a washout of 20% is understandable. Though Access Economics, and I regard them as pretty much on the ball, they're saying fourth quarter you could see a $45 handle for ore, so that really shakes the market up a little bit. What impact that's going to have with BHP and the Fortescues and the Vales and Rio. It's going to be a very interesting, you know, next 4 to 5 months for that whole sector. What it'll do with, you know, the barometer being copper and where China plays. So, you know, at the moment, I think that a lot of people are just, you know, taking a deep breath and seeing, you know, what the next couple of weeks are going to present to themselves.
I think China, that is the crucial part of all of this. Lawrence, what is your thought on, I guess, the pullback and whether you think we might be in for further weakness from here for iron ore?
Iron ore is fascinating because if we could get to a point where it's sort of 50, 60, you'd say, OK, well, it's a significant downgrade in terms of the spot price, but it's still very profitable for the likes of Fortescue and Rio. So we don't see the sort of $80 a tonne being sustainable for a long period of time, but likewise, you can make significant profits at sort of 50 or so. So if we do even get to 45, it's likely that we're going to see, hopefully, a nice dividend from all of these iron ore producers come August. Well,
of course, those big miners that have such a low cost base, so they can sustain further falls in the iron ore price. If you were to look at, say, the big guys, BHP, Rio, Fortescue, would you have a pick? Would you look at buying any of them?
No, Fortescue we've got to sell on, so we would probably stay clear of that one, and then it would be BHP or Rio, and probably BHP for that sort of more conservative investor. I think iron ore, there's problems, obviously, that the markets are worried about tighter Chinese monetary policy. I think that's the big thing. They're looking at steel consumption, and we're looking at mine expansion in Brazil as well. So all of these factors are now starting to come through, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, most analysts have got $50, $60 baked into their numbers, and they really haven't been chasing this spot price higher. So everybody's really got sort of a conservative number on that one.
Yep. Okay, excellent. Yep.
Absolutely right, Leanne. I mean, it was, you know, 2016 was a screamer of a year for the ore sector. So, you know, the markets go up, they go down, it's a little bit of volatility, and, you know, sometimes they get over-exhausted to the upside.
Speaking of volatility, precious metals, I wanted to get your thought on gold. Obviously, given the recent events in Syria, concerns over North Korea's nuclear ambitions as well, gold seems to be reacting in a rather subdued and sort of lacklustre manner.
Well, it is a little bit, but remembering we hit 12.70 on Friday, it's back at about 12, you know, just on 12.60-ish, maybe a fraction, you know, $1 or $2 cheaper than that. I still think that, you know, the geopolitics has been built into the price. There's still uncertainty. The non-farm payrolls weren't, you know, knock the ball out of the park sort of numbers. And where the US dollar's trading at the moment, gold's probably taking a little bit of a breather. If you look back over the last month or month and a half, it's had a very nice uptick. So maybe sometimes it just takes a little bit of a couple of days to have a break, and let's see what happens. North Korea is a minefield of what can happen there as far as Trump. And I don't think the Syria situation's gone away completely. So I think there could be further volatility over that, again, Northern Hemisphere summer.
All right, fantastic. We might wrap it up there, Pete. It's been wonderful talking to you as always. Do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Leanne. Thank you.
Peter McGuire.